Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Blessed Mess podcast. I'm your host, Maria Buskirk. Hi, welcome to the Blessed Mess podcast. I'm your host, Maria Buskirk. In this podcast, we're going to be tackling the hard-hitting topics of being a Christian teenager or young adult in today's society. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to season 2. I'm so glad you're here. Just one thing I really want to go off of talking about this is that it is currently 6:30 a.m. when I'm filming this because I have work today and I have to get this filmed today. So I'm really proud so far of my discipline this year. I just want to talk about this. My one thing that I decided to come up with, instead of doing really big like New Year's resolutions that I usually drop off by like May, I decided to do one word to focus on for the year, and my word is discipline. And so I easily could have just been like, oh, I'll push the episode back a day, it's fine, or whatever excuse I could come up with. But instead, since I slacked earlier in the week and I could have had it filmed sooner, I decided to have discipline, and I woke up really early this morning and got everything set up to film this morning so I can get it edited and ready by Friday. So here we are, very early. I'm gonna hopefully get this done here and have it ready for you guys, and you'll be watching it by Friday. So first thing I want to talk about, other than that, sorry guys, I'm so tired. I was coming off of Passion. Again, I'm going to talk about Passion. If you don't know what Passion is, and you haven't watched the last few videos, I highly recommend you watch my Passion 2025 video, because I talk a lot about Passion in both of them, especially the Passion 2025 one. But it was an amazing experience, and if you haven't watched those episodes, go back and watch them. At Passion this year, I was starting to have idolatry put on my heart to talk about, and it's something that I feel like a lot of people don't think they struggle with, but it's so sneaky. Idolatry can be so sneaky. I had a struggle with it, and I didn't realize for years that I struggled with it until about last year. So let's just get right into it. So what is idolatry? To start us off, what is it? Before I got to really know Jesus, I thought idolatry was just like worshiping false gods or placing your faith in like horoscopes or tarot cards or manifesting, or you can fill in the blank of anything that is like false god related. I thought that that's what idolatry was, and yes, all those things like do fit in to idolatry. That doesn't have to be all. It's not just that. I looked up the Greek word for idolatry, and idolatria. I don't know if I said that right, but it literally means the worship of false gods. So it makes sense that that's what I thought it was, and you're not wrong, but there's a lot more of what we could consider to be our God in those false gods category. So is idolatry a bad thing? Well, 1 Corinthians 10:14 sums it up pretty dang well. Therefore, my dear friends, flee from idolatry. Flee from it. So I know I talked a lot about how idolatry is the worshiping of false gods, but I started to say that those things like horoscopes, tarot card readings, manifesting, those things that you could place as like your god, aren't the only things that, it's not just these like radical things that you could say would fall in the idolatry category. So anything can be an idol if you're putting it above God, or you're loving it more than God. We should be able to admire the work of our Creator, but admire our Creator over everything. So some things that I've noticed around my friends, my relatives, myself, especially in myself, that can become idols very quickly, and I just noticed have been in today's world. These are just some things that I could say, yes, I relate to that, or I've seen people relate to that for sure. So things that can fall under the category of idolatry, it's not always obvious, but here are some things. Your phone. I notice a lot that I will pick up my phone and scroll on Instagram more times in a day than I'm picking up my Bible and learning God's word, being with God, having time with God. Your boyfriend or girlfriend. This one I sort of relate to, in the sense of, for a long time, for many years, I was striving to be in a relationship. It was like my main kind of goal. And it wasn't until about last year I realized that I had a very unhealthy relationship, or I had very unhealthy habits with, like, having crushes or being in talking stages or so on. I got almost obsessive for no reason. And it wasn't until I was in my relationship last year that I started to realize that God's in control. Like, I really realized that through the whole process. At the beginning, no. Through the talking stage, no, sort of. And then, like, the rest of it, I was like, this is, like, God's will. We'll figure it out, you know. It's very easy to get obsessive in those relationships or put it above God with your significant other. Your sport. I didn't relate to this one too much. I love my sport. I loved swimming in high school, but that was not on the top of my list. But I have seen it in many other people that they idolize their success in their sport. Academics. This is one that I also relate to a lot. I strive to be very successful, overly successful almost, to an unhealthy level. And there can be some very toxic behaviors that can come from it. The current trends. This is a big one. Very big one. A lot of people are so invested in the current trends of clothing, just any, like, materialistic things, the new, like, technology. They're always the first person to get the new iPhone, or if a new gaming system comes out, they're immediately wanting to get it, or fill in the blank. And another one I have is your success in general. So this could fill in for any of the other things almost, but just your success of, like, wanting to hit your goals and doing anything you can to reach that goal can become idolatry if you're not careful. So those are just a few things that I've noticed in some of my relationships or in myself that people can make idols, which, again, an idol can be anything that you are putting above God. Now, here's one that I think a lot of people don't understand. Like, it'll be hard to explain, but just hear me out. A lot of people like to make their sin an idol. You might say that your sin is too big or too hard to manage for God. You're idolizing that sin. You're praising that sin for being so big, whether you realize it or not, and you're saying it's too big for God to handle. It's over God. It's bigger than Him. You are doubting a big God to do your light work. He can handle your sin. You don't have to idolize it and say that it's too big or too messy or too hard to manage for Him, because He can manage it. He can handle it. So I just want to talk about my perspective with idolatry for a moment. I talked a little bit about how I really struggle with wanting to get into a relationship, and it took me a long time to realize that I did have a problem with idolatry in idolizing being in a relationship. Now looking back on it, I realized how much time I wasted learning more about God, focusing on Him, building my relationship with Him, trusting in Him. I wasted so much time focusing on my next relationship or my next crush or whatever, when I could have been using it for good. I wasted so much time, and do I regret that? Wasting that time? No, because I learned so much and I'm able to speak on it so much better that it is a real thing. And like, ladies out there, I know we struggle with this so much, but just trust that like God will provide. If He puts that desire on your heart, He will provide for you, and don't worry, it'll happen. And why would we want to chase after a guy who God might be trying to tell us to run from? And God's trying to tell us, hey, he's not your person. Hey, he's not who I have planned for you. I have bigger plans for you. Just remember that, like, God's will is so much greater and larger than your will. And I know it's so hard to, like, trust that because you can't see it. You don't know that. But you just gotta trust that it will be. Because it will be. So, what are some ways to tell if something is an idol in your life? So, one thing that kind of helped me realize that I had a problem with idolizing relationships was when my mind was clear. I would say, like, when my mind is clear, what is the first thing that I think of? And it was, at the time, whatever person I was trying to be with. And so if you're thinking of whatever that thing is you're thinking of more than God, it might become an idol, or it might already be an idol. Another one is if it causes you to grow farther from God. I noticed when I got into like this almost obsessive mindset, I grew really far away from God, and I wasn't even listening to Him at all. This is a big one for me. It is what you fear to lose most. This was a big one for me to realize coming off of my relationship, because I was so worried to lose that relationship that I didn't know what to do with myself after. And it started to almost become the thing that I feared to lose most. It is giving you greater joy than Christ. So you are prioritizing it over your relationship with God, and it is giving you more joy. I wouldn't even really consider it joy. I would consider it more happiness, because it's probably fleeting. But it's making you happier than your relationship with Christ. So those are some ways to point out what can become an idol or what is an idol in your life? What are some ways to manage it or change it? Well, in my case, like I said, I was really idolizing a relationship. I just started really praying over that. I was, again, coming off of my relationship just about a year ago. Just really praying over, it's kind of whatever you're lacking is what leads to that idolatry. So for me, I was lacking in a true trust in God. So I was trying to control and manage my love life because I didn't have trust that God would provide. So I started praying that I could have trust in Him, so I didn't need to obsess over a relationship. And you can fill in that prayer however you need to. If it's about your academics, just pray that like God will provide in whatever schools you're trying to get into or whatever kind of success you're trying to get to. You can pray for that and just pray that He will provide. He has a great path for you, and you just gotta trust. I feel like no matter whatever idol you have, it's based off of a slight lack. It doesn't even have to be a huge lack in trust in God. It's just a little bit can go a long way. That slight lack of trust in God just causes you to kind of veer off course and trust in something else more, or focus on something else more, or hyperfixate on something in order to control it more. So I'd say just pray over whatever you think whatever's weighing on your heart of what could be an idol. Another thing that I'd say has helped me through my journey is having those battle buddies that I've talked about before. If you watch my season 1 podcast episode, Summer Lovin', and it's all about like friends, I talk a lot about battle buddies. It is so important in your life to have people who will hold you accountable and kind of give you that tough love of, hey, I've been noticing that you've been whatever, fill in the blank of whatever you might be struggling with. Having those people to lovingly call you out to get you back on track is so important, and it's helped me a lot. Another thing I would say is just trying to work on taking your thoughts captive. When I pointed out that whenever your mind's clear, what's the first thing that you think of? Right then is a great opportunity to just take your thoughts captive. If you're struggling with like your academics, you're immediately thinking, oh, I need to go study, or oh, I didn't get a good grade on this test, I gotta work harder, I can't believe I did so bad on that lab report, I gotta do better. Or if it's your sport, I gotta go practice so I'm ready for this next game against this really hard team. Or I gotta go save up so I can buy the newest iPhone, or the newest Nikes, or the newest Lululemon. I gotta go play Block Blast on my phone for the next hour because I have nothing else to do, instead of getting in my word. Whatever you're thinking of that's leading to that idolatry, take the thought captive. Just say like, wait a minute, take a pause, and just take that thought and throw it out. And those are some things that I think you could use to help with idolatry. I know it can be really hard. Idolatry is such a tricky thing, but I know you guys can beat it. If I can, you can. And life is so much better when you're just putting all that trust in God instead of these other things that you think can kind of fill you up, but you're still lacking somewhere. I think not only idolatry comes from that lack of trust, but it also comes from that void. There's something missing in you that you feel like you have to fill it, and you're filling it with these material, worldly things instead of godly things. Instead of filling that hole in you with Jesus, you're filling it with your significant other, your academic success, your sport success, your current trends, your phone usage. So just really work on that, recognizing that, and taking the steps you need. And you might be able to kind of use my advice, but mold it into your situation better to help you better. But I pray that you guys can use what I'm saying and kind of put it into action in your life. I don't want you to just be listening to this and being like, oh, that was a great podcast, and then kind of moving on, So if you feel like there's something that you're idolizing in your life, just take the steps you can to manage it. I'm currently walking through that, where I'm just taking my thoughts captive and I'm praying over that thing that's kind of consuming my thoughts right now and not making it an idol. And I know you can too. It's tough, but you can do it. And I will see you guys next week for a new episode. Bye, guys.